Okay, happy Monday, everyone. Today we're doing Module 2, Lesson 19. And today is all about dividing by multiples of 10. So last week we estimated to divide by multiples of 10, but today we're going to actually find the actual answer, okay? Not only are we going to learn how to divide by multiples of 10, we are going to use multiplication to check our answer. If we're going to be dividing by multiples of 10, does that mean that my whole will be a multiple of 10 or my divisor will be a multiple of 10? If I'm dividing a number by a multiple of 10, is the whole going to be a multiple of 10 or the divisor going to be a multiple of 10? Divisor, very good. So today, under your learning goal, I want you to write that the divisor is going to be a multiple of 10. Now, how do we know that we can use multiplication to check our division problem? Talk to your table groups. One thing I want to tell you is sometimes when we do division, we write the remainder. Sometimes we don't. It depends on the context or the reason why we're doing the division, okay? If we want to find out how much of things are left over after we divide it, do we want there to be a decimal or do we want there to be a remainder? Remainder, okay, and that's the context we're working with this time. If we don't want to know how much is left over, we want to divide up every last bit of my whole, does that mean we have a remainder or we have a decimal? Decimal. Okay, but for this week, we want remainders. Does that make sense? Good. In this problem, 70 divided by 30, what is our whole? Everyone?
70.
What is our divisor?
30.
30. Okay, let's use the skill we learned last week first, which is to estimate. Okay? Do we estimate the whole or the divisor first? Which one's the divisor? 30. Okay, so if we're going to estimate, is 30 already a pretty easy number to work with? So do we need to estimate it? Do we need to round it? No. But is the whole compatible with 30? So what number is more compatible with 30? Everyone?
60.
So we can say this problem is pretty close to 60 divided by 30, which is what? 2. So we know through our estimate that this answer should be pretty close to 2. Okay, now, moving on. When we divide, if we're going to write it in standard algorithm, which part lives in the house? The whole or the divisor? The whole. What is the whole? 70. So 70 lives in the whole. And which number is on the door? The divisor. Remember D for divisor, so it's D for door. 70 is the whole, which sounds like house. They both start with a sound. Okay? Now, can 7 be shared equally amongst 30 groups? No. So we could imaginarily put a 0 there, right? But we don't need to because we could just imagine it. Now, could 70 be equally divided into 30 groups? There's enough to put at least one in each group, right? Based on our estimate, what number should we try first? 2. Okay, so we'll put 2. Then we multiply. 2 times 30 is 60. Be careful, don't skip steps, please. Okay, is 60. And then we subtract to find out how much is left. 10. We have 10. What's the unit for the tens? Ones. So if we have 10 ones left, is that enough to put it into 30 groups? When the number we have down here is smaller than our divisor, we know that we can't put any more into any groups, right? So then what we're going to do is we're going to call that today our remainder. That's what's left over. So we're going to write an R to show that's the remainder, and we're going to say that the remainder is 10. Now, we think this is our answer, but we're going to check it, okay? Basically, when we check it, here's what we're thinking that we did. Our whole was 70, but we split it up into 2 different groups. We had a remainder of 10, and then we also had 60. Which in our heads was 2 groups of the divisor, 2 groups of the 30, right? So in order to check it, we're going to take our quotient. What's our quotient? 2. And we need to multiply it by our divisor, right? Because remember, if we were to write this, it'd be 2 remainder 10. So in order to multiply, we have to go backwards. So we take our quotient, which is 2, multiply it by our divisor, which is 30. What is 2 times 30? 60. Wait a second, but that didn't end up with our whole because we forgot that we had this other part that we separated it. So you can see the 60 is right here. It's this part, but we have to add it to our remainder. So we could do this. The check needs to show 60 plus 10 equals 70. And then you can put a check mark because it matches up with our whole. Here I want to stress that we're using our estimate to figure out where we start. If we don't estimate, will we know where to start?
No.
No. Okay. After Dad divides, Mom has to multiply. What's 6 times 90?
540.
Okay. Sister will subtract. 32. And then brother has nothing to bring down. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Now, if brother wanted to finish dividing and not have a remainder, he could regroup these 32 ones as 320 tenths. And then could he keep dividing?
Yeah.
But in this lesson today, brother does not want to do that. He's not going to bring anything down if there's nothing to bring down. This 32 what's the units? It's 32 ones. Can we share 32 ones equally into 90 groups? No, that means that's what's left over, which means it's the remainder. Okay, so what's our quotient? 6. What's our remainder? 32. So up here we can write that 572 divided by 90 we think is 6 with a remainder of 32. But in order to really know, we have to check our work. Okay, so using the inverse operation, I can do 6 times 90, right? Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so in our check, we can do 6 times 90, which is what? 540. But wait a second, that's not my whole.
But what if
Again, that's because we split up our whole. It's going to get big really quick for a second, okay? Our whole into 2 different parts. We separated it into 540, right, which is where we did our quotient times our divisor, 6 times 90. And then what's the second part? Our remainder, 32. So we have to add those 2 parts up. So in your check, let me see if I can find it again. Look, it's small. Here we go. Okay. In our check, we did 6 times 90 equals 540, but then we also have to show that we do 540, what? Plus 32, which is our remainder. If we do 540 plus 32, what do we get? 572. Is that the number we want?
Yes.
Good. And so we can check that is correct. Now, this problem is asking us to kind of work backwards, to think backwards, okay? It's telling us that a number, some number, we don't know what it is. That's what we're trying to figure out. We don't know what number, but it's been divided by 40. Okay, so we have some number. It's been divided by 40. Okay. It has a quotient of 6. Remember, quotient means answer. And then it has a remainder of 16. And it's asking us to find the number. So do we know the whole?
No.
That's what we're trying to figure out. Do we know the divisor? What's the divisor? 40. We know that because it says a number has been divided by 40. So once we write it out like this, do you see how we know the divisor? Do we know the quotient?
Yeah.
What's the answer? 6. 6. That's the quotient. Is the remainder part of the quotient? No, right? The quotient is the part that's actually divided. And then what's left over? The remainder, right? What's our remainder? Do you see how the problem gave us this information, but we need to figure out what the whole is? So how can we figure out what the whole is? This is almost like we've solved the problem, right? And we need to check our answer, isn't it? Okay, so when we checked, we took the whole. We don't know what the whole is, but we split it into 2 groups, yes? Okay, remember, part of the group was when we multiplied 40 and 6, right? So over here is 40 times 6. And then we have to add the second group, which is the remainder. Do you guys see that? Is it like what we did before? So what's 40 times 6? 240. And we have to add the remainder, which is 16.